All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Spark Me. Spark Me. I am so excited for this interview. I got we are interviewing one of my heroes right now. This is an excited competition because I won. I have been so jonesing for this interview. It's crazy. We are just so honored, to have with us Dr. Karen Murphy.
Thank you.
Like, I'm going to read a formal introduction because I don't want to forget anything. And you have to, if as the career is like annually, yes, the what. So we have to let everybody, all of our listeners know who she is and why she's here. And at the end of the day, we're here to spark great conversations about, the next chapter of life. And I know we're going to do that. So, all right, well, listeners, Dr. Karen Murphy, PhD, RN, is a visionary leader in healthcare innovation and transformation. She's currently serving as the Vice President of Lead of Value-Based Platform Initiatives and Senior Advisor to the CEO at Risent. And formerly, she was the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Digital Transformation Officer at Geisinger. Recognized by Mara Healthcare as one of the top 25 women leaders, Dr. Murphy has devoted her career to improving healthcare access, equity, and delivery across both public and private sectors. Before joining Geisinger, she was Pennsylvania's Secretary of Health, addressing key health issues like opioid epidemic, and previously led a national $990 million healthcare innovation and a $1 million healthcare innovation initiative with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. At Geisinger, Dr. Murphy founded the Steele Institute for Health Innovation, where her work in digital transformation, machine learning, behavioral economics, and other advanced areas is shaping the future in healthcare. With her extensive background as a former CEO and public health official, Dr. Murphy is celebrated for her commitment to transforming healthcare into a more equitable, efficient, and patient-centered system. Karen also enjoys a full and happy family life. She's a proud mother of 2 accomplished children, supported by her loving husband, Marty, and she shares her home with the most beloved and thoroughly spoiled dog, Buddy. Her family's encouragement and her loyal canine companion bring balance and joy to her dynamic career. Welcome, Karen Murphy, or world.
Thank you, and I'm so happy to be here with you too, lady.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Where to even start? We got to get right into it, but we do. And I think that one of the things that has always inspired me is really how you started in your career. You really started at the very bottom. And if you could just share a little bit about that early beginning.
So I think I started at the bottom of youth because I was a teenage mom, graduated from high school 11 days later, married my high school sweetheart, who is still, as Michele said, we're together today. We just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. So it's super exciting. But I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. I loved healthcare. I worked at a nursing home throughout high school and just fell in love with healthcare and knew that that was my passion. So after I had my baby, I went to Scranton State Hospital, School of Nursing, which is no longer there, but received my diploma and then went right on to Mullis Taylor Hospital in Scranton. Worked in the intensive care unit for 10 years, and then went on to hold several different administrative positions. My last position there as president CEO of the system. So started out, we always say, Marty and I always say when we talk about our happiest days, they were when we were 18 and 19 because we had no expectations. We just were thrilled, knew we had started our family and fell in love, and it wasn't until as we got older we said it got harder. It really, everybody said, wasn't that really hard? But we had a fabulous family that supported us and supported our education journey as well as our professional careers. So they're lucky.
So you started out as essentially a teenage mom, working, going to school, and then working full-time, built your career through the hospital system to eventually from being a nurse providing care to being the president and CEO of the hospital in 10 years.
No, I was actually there. That occurred over 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was there for 3 decades.
Wow.
So long time. I always say I worked in every department but more. So had wonderful people there also as mentors. And really, if you think about the 80s and the 90s, in Scranton, there weren't a lot of women who were really, there were a lot of women who could have done great work, but there were not a lot of women that had opportunity like I did.
So you're a nurse. You're working as a nurse. I mean, this is not a typical trajectory for most people who go in nursing. Where were the first turning points?
So I think the first turning point was, and this is where I always tell people to be open. After I left ICU, because as you well know, those terrific ICU nurses work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So when I left ICU, I went for a more stable job in nursing, the Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday, no holidays. No, they used to call them clipboard nurses back then. And I hated it. It was really, every day was the same. And I'm not the everyday the same type person. So I said, whatever job comes up next, I'm going to apply for. And I only had a diploma at that point. A diploma nurse, just so everybody knows, used to be you received college credits, but all of your clinical credits were really just of the school. They were what you needed to qualify as a registered nurse. So the job I took after I left that boring job, the job I took required business knowledge. And I decided at that point I knew nothing about business. So I had to go back to school to get my bachelor's. It took me 9 years to get a bachelor's. It took me another 10 probably to get my master's at MBA. And the fastest school was Rotary at my PhD. But I knew that in terms of if I was going to be a leader in healthcare, that I really needed to understand business. So that's how the pivot really wasn't intentional. It was I didn't like the job question. So I took this new one and then went on a completely different trajectory.
And so you were doing this at a time, as you mentioned, you were a young mom. And then you chose to have another child. So how in that time were you able to balance and manage your career and being a mom?
So I had tremendous help. My grandmother lived with us, with Marty and I. My grandmother lived with me my whole life with my parents, but she lived with Marty and I. So she, was a woman of way ahead of her time. She said to me, you go do for you, and I will take care of them, and they will be fine. So she lived with us. She did everything. So I had that support. And then I had a husband who said the same thing. You go, we got this, and really helped me at home.
Do you think it would have been possible without that support?
Not to the intensity, but I did it because I took her to a whole new, it went to a whole new level. So I don't think not when my kids were small. It would have been really hard. Now, the advantage of, I didn't go back to school right away after I received my diploma. I took a break. And I think that's what people have to understand. Sometimes in your life, you don't have to have that intensity. You can put your intensity in different places. And I put my intensity in my family at that time. But then once I started to go back to school and take those other jobs that required more time, started being more time at work that helped your own listen about.
How did the CEO job come about? Like, what was the path to get there? And what was that like, again, was the fact that you were a woman, at any time, was it a positive or a negative or neutral?
It depended on how you talked. Okay. For some, it was a negative, but I had two really strong male mentors.
Yeah.
That really shepherded me that I would never be where I am today without them. I mean, they promoted me, they supported me, and they were just fabulous. I mean, if but for them, I wouldn't be. You probably wouldn't be jumping today.
So you spoke about these mentors, these male mentors they have. In what way specifically did they help you? And can you credit that mentorship in any way towards, becoming CEO of Moses Taylor, and then what happened after that?
Absolutely, I credit them with enabling me to even apply for the position. So, I really, what they enabled me to do, enabled me to be the CEO, and not only that, but I had to spring to make some pretty difficult decisions, and support in how you think about those decisions. So they were just, really my whole life in terms of that for my career. And then I think after, where it gave me courage is, Marty and I had never, I always say we relocated from Dunmore to Clark Severn, so we had never left the area. But I had a friend that I had met previously. Well, he worked here in Scranton, and he was now the director of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Inpatient. And he knew I was leaving the hospital. And he said, how about coming down to work with me here? And it was just an amazing experience working for the federal government. I loved public service. Marty and I had wonderful time living in Baltimore. And then you came back to public service on the state level. And, I would urge all early career people to go in and out of public service, because it is probably one of the most gratifying parts of my professional career. Was, I was with the patient at the bedside as a registered nurse, and then leading my community as the CEO. But when I went to the federal government, our denominator was the nation. So every day you walked into work, you knew you were trying to impact health care for the nation. And then when I went to the state, the 12 million people in Pennsylvania is who I woke up and thought about every time I walked through the door.
So you said when you went to the state, could you be specific about that?
I was Secretary of Health in Governor Wolf's first term. Just an unbelievable experience.
And how did that come about?
Our friend, this is an absolutely true story. So a friend called me from here and said the governor is taking opening interviews for his capital position. And I said, really? I mean, that's not the way it works. And he said, no, I'm serious. You could put your resume in, and if you get past the credential process, you'll get an interview. So the federal government, when you mentioned the close to $1 billion, it was a program that federal government worked with state governments. So I got into the first interview. And then I got through to the second interview, and the third interview, they called me and they said, Feller wants to meet. So I went down to Strawberry Square in Harrisburg and met with Tom Wolf, who I'd never met before. And he called me, I'll never forget it. It was January 19th, as I was driving from Baltimore home, and he said, would you like to be my Secretary of Health? Was like, yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah, that was something. So it never could I have ever imagined that would ever be. But I really wish I'd found it earlier in my career, because I would have done a lot more public service.
Hey, but I'm sorry, Michele. I was just going to say something that I don't think our listeners realize is you went from the president and CEO of the health system to working at a cubicle with a team at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, right?
Thoroughly.
I mean, that transition from having, your own executive assistant and, everything sort of done for you to suddenly you're in a cubicle working with a team. And you said that was one of the most gratifying
Yes.
experiences.
It was gratifying in a couple of ways. First of all, it's humbling. So, you aren't always going to be in the corner office. That's number one. And you still have contribution to make. So it humbled me. I think the second thing was, our area demographics, there's not a lot of young people. Like the people that I worked at the hospital I started there with, we were 21 and then worked for 30 years. We all grew up together. We knew each other's families. But when I got to CMMI, it was this huge group of young, smart, dedicated people that I just had this experience with, that I still talk to them to this day. But it was looking at the world from a youthful perspective and how much hope and how much promise for this country that they had was just magnificent, just magnificent.
That's the thing that we've talked about in other interviews, that as you get older and further into your life, your career, you lose that hopeful energy. And how, as we approach this part of our life, do we recapture it? Is it from, did you recapture it working with people that were, feeling that energy?
I would say it was definitely having their energy. It was their optimism. And it was a lesson to me that sometimes you have to check yourself, because we are our experiences, and they always looked at everything as we can do, as opposed to we tried it 52 times, it didn't work. I mean, that you've all heard that. So I think that, and then I think the other thing is I'm a little vain, so I don't take that I'm as old as I am. So sometimes I think, well, I'm not that much further away. Probably are. Probably I feel that. Yeah, exactly. So, but it did, it was just the experience of, and it was a mission driven, we were the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, which was born through the Affordable Care Act. So it was relatively new. The Affordable Care Act was relatively new. And our job was to really implement programs that supported the ACA. So it was just very mission driven. And there were career people there that, clearly were not of the Obama administration or appointed there, but they dedicated their career to public service and dedicate their life to making this country a better place for healthcare.
Wow. So as I'm looking at your career, so you're a nurse by the patient's bedside, you're the CEO of a hospital, you're back in the corner office, back to the cubicle, working for Medicare and Medicaid, federally maintained with these young people. You're back in the federal government as the Pennsylvania Secretary of Health, right? Like this push and pull, all of them in their own ways equally important, but like profile a little different, maybe stress levels a little different. Looking back at all those different chapters, is there one that you found the most fulfilling, or a time when you found the most stressful? Like, and how did you navigate the stress, and what brought you into or out of those fulfilling chapters, right? And why? Why did you make those choices?
So I think you have to have courage, and you have to believe in yourself, that even when you're making those hard choices, that you're going from the corner office to the cubicle, that is the right thing to do because you're broadening your perspective on something else. I think sometimes we're way too rigid when we look at life and think that you have to have it all mapped out and it's going to be perfect, like linear. And I just learned really early on that isn't the case. That you have to really, I think you have to go with the ups and downs. I think in some ways, most of my jobs were stressful. Some of them I can't figure out if it was me, but the adrenaline rush and I had made them stressful in order for them to be good. But I think that when you look at the hills and valleys in life, you just always have to stay open, because the next one, whether that be the hill or the valley, is going to be you're going to get to the next one after that.
That's amazing. So now in this current chapter, right, where you are now, what do you find are your greatest challenges today?
So I think the greatest challenge in healthcare today is really we have to change the way we deliver healthcare. We have to change the way we pay for healthcare.
And we have a lot of challenges, particularly in our geography, looking for workers,
Looking for recruiting physicians, recruiting all health professionals.
So we have an aging population that I don't think we're taking care of too well. I mean, in terms of trying to keep them in the home, we want to keep them in the home as long as we possibly can. So today, it's a great experience to have with the new company
That acquired Geisinger called Risent. We look for ways to transform healthcare using people, process, and technology. Now, the technology is the new part, and I truly have the most faith in the technology as an enabler to change the way we deliver healthcare, because we always had people in process, but the technology, we needed that extra piece. I think the cost of healthcare is extremely concerning.
I think that when we look at it impacting everybody's life,
In terms of we're spending too much as an industry, and we're not spending it well. So I think that right now is a real focus of mine. I think next focus will be definitely on taking myself back to that 18-year-old self and going on journeys with other. That's really important to me, and I really want to do that. Is going on journeys with early career women who may have some challenges to get to where they want to be.
It's really interesting that you're talking about, because we had an interview where our guest was using technology to help education and kids at the younger stage. And you're saying I'm employing technology because I don't think we're treating our seniors and elderly appropriately. Right. And it's the other end of the spectrum. Exactly.
I mean, let's face it, technology has taken over our world.
Yeah.
Right. So in healthcare, we've been really slow to figure it out. For all kinds of reasons. But I think when I think of our community in our demographic is a lot of elderly people, and most have help at home that could help them with the technology that we need to keep them in home. So very optimistic about that.
How will artificial intelligence aid in helping people stay in their home longer, stay healthier? What are you seeing down the road?
So for a long time, I said if I don't say artificial intelligence every day, 5 times a day, I don't belong to be in this help in the innovation position. Now, if I don't say Gen AI 1,000 times a day, I feel like I'm 800 times. I think it'll definitely be very, very useful. The fastest to me where it will be helpful will be consumer-facing engagement, business processes. I think where it gets a little challenging that we have to really guide and study is if you're going to get into collaborative decision making. So, we need a lot of AI, our processes. We spend a huge amount of money on administrative cost in the health system. Gen AI can help with all of that. Our customer service, very rarely we get frustrated by it, but very rarely are you actually chatting to human beings when you're in other economic sectors. We need to do that with healthcare to make very effective tools, but leverage the technology. The clinical care, I think it's really, and what I mean by that is, are you going to have somebody put their symptoms in and a doctor is not going to use cognitive thinking, but they're going to just say, what's the diagnosis? I don't see that. I really don't see that. I think AI is, for example, a good example of how it's helping doctors is if you think back last time you went to your doctor, they probably had hits down in the computer because they have so many things to document. Well, now we're using artificial intelligence to do voice-activated dictation. So doctors can speak into their phone while they're looking at the patient, interacting with the patient, and patients are just crazy about it. I mean, that's huge. That is huge.
So you had these like very high octane careers, right? And you said you love adrenaline, right? So do you process stress differently, or do you just have strategies for handling it?
Stress to me is usually only about things I had no control over. So if I had control over my job and I had control over what choices we make, as hard as it is, it might be difficult, but it's not stressful. It really is not stressful. What I have always been stressed about is things out of my control.
How are your kids? I mean, obviously you said you had great support at us, but, you know, you were raising your kids and pursuing your career. When you talk to your kids now, they're adults, do they look back on it and say they missed out on anything?
They have two very different pictures, which is probably true because they're 7 years apart. So my daughter remembers a much more traditional, me being home all the time. My son remembers me being frantic, running into the basketball game in my high heels. No, very different. They had very different experiences. But like I tell them, and I would tell any mother that's out working, the good news here is your kids only have one mother, so they only know what they feel about a mother. So I can't look back and, I really can't look back and say, boy, I made it the second time. It was when I was really accelerated my career. So, and I did storm gymnasiums in 4-inch heels. Yeah, I was late for the game and I had to get there, and everybody else had their sneakers on. But I think if you asked him, he's probably glad.
So I know Murray, so I know the answer to this, but it sounds like you have a really amazing partner and who supported you through your career, successful in and of himself, but also very supportive of what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that women who don't have that would struggle more to be able to accomplish the things that you've been able to accomplish?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I ever had somebody calling me at work to say what time is dinner, like, go that. I mean, it just, that's to me is a very big stressor. Like, yeah, if I had somebody say like, you're going out again, like that would play on your mind, and never once was I ever asked. The only time we ever made the deal that it was for our kids if we were going to be if there was a game or there was something special for them. But that pressure, and I hate to cook anyway, so they were probably really enjoy loving cooking. I only cook one meal a year, and that's Thanksgiving. And they tell me that's, if I say, I'm going to make something, they go, yeah.
We're good.
So, yeah, I think it's very stressful. I think I can't imagine accomplishing what I did if I had somebody in my ear every day saying what I wasn't doing. I think that would be very hard.
And I think that's a theme that I heard here, Karen, with your story, like especially when you said your grandmother was helping when you were younger. And that's the idea of like the greater community in our lives. So, right. And you heard it at that level with, being able to rely on the village, and then you say you want to go on this journey now. So talk to us about the community that you feel is going to be important, essential to you moving forward.
So I definitely want to do something with early moms. And I don't exactly know what that is, but definitely want to be the encourager. I think so many times when you start out in a very vulnerable state like we did, people tend to tell you what you can't do now. They tend to look at the situation and say, well, our parents were different, and they said you must complete the level of education that you committed to. And we both went beyond that. But I think teenage moms, early career moms, that was one thing I learned when I went to night school. So I got my bachelor's. Like I said, it took me decades, I felt like. But there were single moms that were taking care of kids that had far worse or bigger challenges than I ever did. And I looked at them then and I said, it can be done if you're willing to pay the sacrifice. And I'm sure all of those moms who finished their education gave back to their kids by much more than the kids sacrificed. But there's women out there that are doing phenomenal things that really don't get the recognition because they just like not be in a role that they think it's too difficult. So I think those people find that they can do it, but there's a whole slew of women out there who have been told you can't do this because of either you don't have the money, either you don't have the support with the children, either, just a multitude of reasons. But if you have that in your head and you get that in your head at a very early age, I think there's a lot of women who missed opportunities because of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a conversation with another guest, and when she was talking about her career, there were several moments where she had to go and advocate for herself to her company, her bosses and things like that. And a lot of women, I feel, don't do that. They don't, for whatever reason, they've been told that they can't do it and they don't have the confidence to do it. But that process of advocating for yourself is so critically important, because whether or not you get what you're asking for, at least you've stood up for what you need and expressed that.
I remember the story, like I was interviewing early, I would say early to mid-career. Fantastic woman for a job. Hands down, could do the job with her eyes closed. And I was interviewing her for 10 minutes. I got to the 10-minute mark. And I looked at her, I said, don't ever do this again. And she said, what do you mean? I said, we're just talking for 10 minutes. You never asked me what the compensation was. And she said, oh, I just don't ever. I said, who else do you think would do that? We're expanding your responsibilities, hugely. And you don't want to know if you're going to get paid more? Like, I can guarantee you, I could bring 15 men in here, and they would be at minute 2. Rightfully, I said, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
As you should. There's nothing wrong with that. But to your point about women feeling that it's distasteful or you're being too aggressive, I think that somehow and I worry about kids today in the environment that girls are going to start thinking again that I have to pull myself back because I don't want to look like. I always say to everybody, tell me the good women leader, because I've never heard how they're described, because I know I'm too aggressive. Everybody tells me I'm so aggressive. And I am very aggressive and have to be, or like I said, Scranton, PA. Growing up, I didn't have any male cheerleaders say. It's a fact. I mean, that's just a fact. But I want women to understand that it is okay to be whatever label they want to label you, as long as you're effective at your job and that you know your job really well and that you're contributing to the organization and to what your job is. But other than that, if you try to zigzag out of different labels, if you're too quiet, you're too quiet. You're not aggressive enough. If you're aggressive, yeah, you can't win. That's true. Be yourself. Just do it. Be yourself, and I think you do have to stand up for yourself.
Are there any resources that helped you significantly along the way, whether that was a book, whether it was a course, whether it was a person? Like you spoke about your mentors, but was there anything? My mom always talked about a Dale Carnegie course she took, but were there any books that were in particular to you that were very meaningful, or any other resources? And it sounds like you're starting a resource or that you're interested in starting a resource for teenage moms, right? What was helpful to you?
Yeah, I think a sentence my father said to me. My father was an executive, and I said, I think I want to go into leadership. And he said to me, and maybe he took the quote from somewhere else. I don't know, my father, God rest him, passed away, but he said to me, Karen, the only thing they all have in common, and he was talking about CEOs, he said the only thing they all have in common is they believe they should be there. And I went, well, I could do that. And it was like to believe you could be there and should be there. And sometimes you had it, I mean, like I said early in my career, I had wonderful men, but I do believe as mentors, but I do believe that I had to work a lot harder and sacrifice a lot of time. I don't think if I replayed the tape and I did it in the amount of time that many times I was the only one in the place, because I thought that's what I had to do. I hope it's different now.
It's interesting because I do think that like grinded out mentality, like that's the mentality we grew up in. Yeah. That's the mentality you grew up in. But I don't think that's the mentality for this current generation. And I hope that they don't have to grind it out, but it's hard for me to see how you move ahead without that sort of drive.
And I think they're going to find out fast. It depends upon how bad you want it, And like what I always say to people, if they say to me, well, I work in this department and they don't promote women, then get out of the department. Yeah. Because you're not going to, I mean, if they don't, they don't. So get out of the department. If you look around and you're in an organization with leaders that don't have the same values you do, don't try to change them, get out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that taking control of yourself, and like I always say, stop whining, move. That's what you have to do is move.
Well, I think your whole life is just an example of no excuses, right? Like you become an excuse for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why this didn't work out? Yeah, why I didn't get to do that? Why life, dealt me a bad deal? But you're just like, no, you just like you pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot, move this way, move that way, get out of the department, try something else. Like just keep moving. But excuses are just gonna get you nowhere.
That's right.
Right. And so and I think that's something that there's grinding it out, and then there's also like not just sitting on your hands and saying I just couldn't.
But making your own path. And if you obviously did not have a straight path, even the first 30 years at the hospital, that was not a straight path.
No.
So I think that's the other thing that women should know is that it's okay. If this isn't working for you, this doesn't feel right, it's okay. It's okay to go.
Well, here's something things I'm sure about versus things I know. things I know. Things I know are that I feel like no matter what, Karen, that we would be sitting here talking about you doing something amazing. No matter what your circumstances have been, like I think you're just one of those people with that drive. Like you're gonna figure it out, and you're gonna get to a goal or whatever you're looking to accomplish, no matter what. Like, throw something in my way, I'll figure a way over it, around it, under it. Like I'm gonna get there. So, like even if you'd had it easier early on or harder early on, like I think we'd still be sitting here talking to you, having done and accomplished amazing things. It's just who you are. So as you look forward, before we go into our lightning round, as you look forward, what excites you most? Like what kind of gets you up in the morning and has you say, like, now I'm excited about this? Do you set a new goal, or do you just sort of let it come to you?
I'm really excited about that other new blank slate. I am thrilled about it. So there's a couple things I talked about mentoring young women. Also would love to mentor young women in general and young men in their career. I want to volunteer and get back.
Yeah.
I can't wait to find places where I can contribute and not contribute in any other way but pack boxes or really, sore clothes. Like, I just want to feel like because I've been so on the hamster wheel that I just haven't, that is an area that I wished I balanced a little bit better. So I'm anxious about that. And I'm just like really excited about who knows.
Do you think you're somebody who could sit on a beach for more than a day or two? Like, are you?
Well, I actually have two. Marty says this, but I have two speeds. I have dead and 100. So I could do dead. Not do dead. Yeah, he goes, it's dead, or it is like don't move, or because I could read forever. I could just say I'm lost in reading. But I think I have to recreate. I want to recreate a purpose because I've always had that. So I just want to, and I really do feel like I want to get back, and I think, God willing, that my health stays, I stay healthy, that I'll be able to do that. But I can't wait to see what, I take any call. Somebody calls in there, hey, do you want to hear about this? Sure. Like, what is it? And that's a very liberating, it's a tremendous liberating feeling.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I think like one of the things we're doing here is creating a community, and I can see it like helping to facilitate things like that. I want to mentor women. Okay, let's build this community. Let's have a section for care group research. Do you know what I mean? Like, you thought like that this is a place where, because we want it to be online so it can reach broader and like it's to all corners of the country and the world. Right? But then we also want to create those in-person connections, right? And because you have to meet people like you one-on-one and really feel that too. And I think community is becoming a real theme here. It is, for sure. And because success doesn't happen on your own. You need that support in whatever way it comes. So, it's interesting. I have a friend of mine who became a widow very unexpectedly. And she had a 2-year-old, and I'll get her the older children's ages slightly off, but maybe a 2-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And she is the head of the vaccine program at Sanofi. So she has a really big job, and her husband passes away unexpectedly, and she really turned to the neighborhood and said, is anybody able to pick up my kids? I can drop them off, but I can't pick them up. Or it's a snow day, where are my kids going to be? And everybody stepped up. I think that if you ask, there are people there that are naturally going to help. It's just making that ask. And, and her kids are thriving, and her career is thriving, and her life is on a very happy trajectory. But during that period, she really needed to tap in. I've always thought it very hard to ask for help. I'm getting much better at it as I get older, but it's still hard, It's necessary though. Like, why are we so? Because I can do it all. How did I figure out myself? If I ask for help, it's weakness. It's a weakness, but it's not. It's a strength. It's a strength. Yeah, that's the truth. So Liz, before we hit the lightning round, do you have any? This has been so incredible.
I just wanted to key in on the point you made about purpose. I mean, I think that one of the things people make a mistake on is that they live their whole life, especially when they have careers where I had a purpose, or I'm raising my family. I want to get my kids through school and then through college and productive members of society. That's my purpose. And then when that goes away, they don't actively look for what's my next purpose. And my mother passed away recently, and my father and my parents had been married for 68 years. They were together for like, I don't know, 5 years before that. So essentially in his whole life, they've been a couple. And I was having coffee with him the other day, and I said, "How was your weekend?" And he said, "Well, I sat down and I wrote out a bunch of goals that I want to achieve." He turns 90 in like 2 weeks, and he has goals because still has a purpose in life. And I think that is such an important lesson that you have shared with us, that, how that importance of always creating a purpose.
I appreciate that. Listen, to be totally honest, it took me a while to get here. In terms of not having that, oh, wow, it's another blank sheet of paper in front of me. And I don't know, I can't have a blank sheet. And I don't know, like, I had to mentally get to the space. And I would say that for any older career people who really did dedicate their lives, and they were identified. I clearly am identified always in what I've done, but have got myself to a headspace that says it's okay now. Like, you everybody knows you're not 40, so it's okay. But I just decided that whatever I do, I have to have the like, I can't just. I wish I could. I mean, I really wish I could go out and play 10 sports and be happy. I just can't do that.
It's not your thing.
Not my thing. But praise to those who absolutely.
Yeah. No, I feel that and I remember my mom pointing the 6 kids empty nested. It literally you could see the credits rolling, and she was like, "What?" That she's a stay-at-home mom, and it's like the what's next. And I feel like there was an emptiness until her grandkids came along. And it's like, this is what I do. I'm back in hope, but here we go again. And I think a lot of women in different ways, whether it's as motherhood or career or whatever, you find themselves in that position where it's the blank slate. Okay, what am I going to put here?
Right.
And I'm like you, Karen. I need to be driven towards something. Like, I could always feel like there's something bigger than me.
That's right. How you trying?
I'll do it and trying to help. Yeah. And so I'm going to be looking at you. You'll push. But I'm going to follow your footprints. No, they're endless. So, yeah, no, I have no doubt it's going to be amazing. Okay. Were you good for the lightning?
I think so. This is going to be fun. You're going to love it.
All right, here we go. These are just like top of your mind, quick answers. Yes, we will always admit we're copying the Actor Studio. Okay, so what is the best advice your parents ever gave you?
Be a good person.
So simple. Perfect. Be a good person. I'm going to let that sit for a second. Be a good person, people. If you could be an expert in any other field overnight, what would it be?
I always wanted to be a singer, and I can't sing. I also wanted to be one of those, like, Leos, with a microphone.
I offend myself singing in the shower. I'm like, oh God, that's so terrible. Just a really quick story. When my ex-husband and I were dating, he was coming over from England, and I'd pick him up at the airport. We drive home. One time I picked him up, and we're driving back, and it was late. And I was tired, but I knew he was more tired, right? So I'm driving, and he's like kind of napping, and I'm like, listen, I've just fallen asleep, so I'm gonna turn the radio. I'm gonna sing. And I'm like, and I know I'm not good. It's just to stay awake. And I turned on Moulin Rouge. And I started singing the best I've ever sang. And within a minute, he gently taps my shoulder and goes, pull over, I'll drive.
Anything to stop the madness.
If you were a character in a movie, who would you be?
Like an actress?
Any movie. It could be the actor, it could be the actress, or it could be the part.
What movie I love the best, and maybe you two are too young. Did you ever see The Way We Were?
Oh, yes. I have Barbara Streisand.
And Mara Streisand.
All right.
Love it.
And now I have to watch it. Is like a power role, or is it just a...
She was like a go-getter. I mean, she was politically active. She always took the the less, I don't know, uh, the role that nobody else wanted, or the position, I should say.
All right. Now I know my next phobia.
She loved her.
Oh my God, who wouldn't? Oh my gosh, he was so handsome.
Jesus. Okay. What is one book you think everyone should read?
I think if you're a leadership, what I always tell when my young people that Sam and Ma used to up and say, you know, I'm going to be a CEO. Should I read, like, what book should I read on how to be a CEO? I said, read First Time Manager. And I think every leader, and regardless of what level you're at, should keep a First Time Manager book that you can get on Amazon for $5 paperback and learn. Because if you don't learn that, you will never be successful. And that, I think I'll just say this real quick. I had my first management role. I messed up so badly that I didn't take a leadership role for 5 years. Oh, wow. And I didn't pick up a book clearly. I thought I knew, I knew how to do it. But that's the book that I would tell everybody in a leadership.
First time manager.
First time manager.
Okay. On Amazon. Okay. What is something that irritates you like nails on a chalkboard?
Rudeness.
I'm with that. All right. What is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Shut the voices off in your head.
So good. And then to follow up, how do you do that? Right?
What is one problem you believe a small group of committed women could fix within a year?
I think if we decided to develop the strategy for women to promote women, I think we're really lousy at it. I think as a society, I think as even in small groups, like it just doesn't, it's totally off. And I think if women could get together to say, well, how could you support a woman? I really think, I really think if we had small communities across this country that we're trying to legitimately promote other women, I think the world would be a better place.
Well, I feel like we're going to start that now. Amen. Hallelujah. Like, let's do it.
All right. Inspiration. There. I think you just laid down the gauntlet.
I know. You totally did. You totally did.
I don't know. I just, this was amazing, Karen. This was such an incredible conversation.
know.
I learned a lot. I'm getting a book.
Exactly. Me too. Amazon's going to be like, oh my goodness, so much. So many people want this book now.
But the themes of just gut it out. But I know what that means, and the kind of no excuses, and a community comes back all the time,
Absolutely. Believe in yourself.
Advocate yourself.
Advocate, make sure that you're getting compensated for the job that you're. I can't tell you how often women under ask for what they should get in compensation. And the problem is they do it at the beginning of their career, and it feeds through the rest of their career. And so they are always under par what men are making for the same role. So we really need young women to expect more at the very get-go.
Do you feel like the second act of life is better than, equal to, worse than the first act? How do you feel about the kind of, the sort of more mature part of your career in life?
I think it's easier the older you get because you're in either one place or not. You can either look back and say, if it was really bad and I didn't get where I wanted, or you could look back and say, I'm just grateful for every experience I had. I chose the latter. The what ifs. Marty has a very famous thing that I won't say what ifs, but
I'll say, when I say what if, I mean, what if is the most pointless.
Yeah.
And looking back is the most useless exercise. There were wasted brain cells on because there's never a what if and there's never a look back. So, you just hope that you enjoy the highs and cut up the lows.
That's awesome.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. I guess that's it. That's the pod. I was pretty sparked by this one. So
God.
need some wine to put it out.
Let's go have some wine.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Are you in? Thank you.